Yo, what's up, Bionicle Nation? You guys ready to go swimming and cry? So today we're going to be talking about the story events of Bionicle 2007, but before we get into that, there are two things that I want to note. Thing number one, 2007 is the last year where I personally collected Bionicles as a kid, so my collection this year is not complete. I'm literally missing one of the Toa from this year. Please don't talk to me about it, okay? It's very embarrassing. And I thought about spending like $2,000 on eBay completing my collection for these videos, and then I was like, no, I'm not, no. And then the other thing about 2007 is that this is the year where Bionicle's method of storytelling changed a little bit. See, until now, as long as you read the Bionicle books, you got the full story of Bionicle, except for some very non-essential things that happen in, like, comics and stuff. But now, Bionicle introduces the concept of web serials. And what web serials are is, a mistake. Web serials are exclusively online and not physically published short stories, which to my understanding were released like blog posts over the course of many weeks, and then some of them weren't actually released as like text, they were released as podcast episodes, and by podcast episodes I mean extremely dry and terrible readings of short stories.
Chapter 2. Tahu and Kopaka dragged a protesting Nuva to the Colosseum.
I think what web serials actually are is just parts of the books that Bionicle head writer and bearer of the curse, Greg Farshtey, wrote. And then the editors at LEGO were like, yeah, these are books for 8-year-olds. They can't be like 300 pages long. And Greg Farshtey was like, oh, well, that's fine. I'll just put them all online. But he was wrong. It's not fine. It's fucked up. The point is that 2007 introduced web serials, and web serials marked the beginning of Bionicle's true descent into like actual clinical insanity. But you'll see what I mean. For now, let's just get right into it. Part 4, the Mahri Nui era. Okay, let's recap. Mahri Nui, protector, custodian, and god of the Matoran universe, is dying after 1,000 years in a coma that he was plunged into by local shadow demon and asshole Makuta. The only way to save him is with the legendary Mask of Life, so the Toa Nuva, protectors of the Matoran of Metru Nui, are sent to its hiding place on the island of Voyanui to get it. They failed at that miserably, so a bunch of Matoran went after them. They got turned into the Toa in Nika, and they actually did succeed in getting the mask, but then they lost it, and it flew across the island and plunged into the ocean. So now the Toa in Nika are going down into the ocean to get it back. Recap complete. Now in the ocean off the coast of Voyanui, unbeknownst to its residents, is the underwater city of Mahri Nui. Mahri Nui was once a part of Voyanui. That's why Voyanui has this weird shape. It's because there was more land there. But it broke off at some point and fell down into the ocean. This incident, by the way, is not to be confused with the Great Cataclysm in which Voyanui itself broke off from the Matoran universe and floated up to the surface of the ocean. This is another thing unrelated in which Mahri Nui broke off from Voyanui. I realize this is all kind of high concept, so I'm gonna visually break it down for you, okay? So we've got the Matoran universe, which is a big dome. The ceiling of the big dome is also the floor of the ocean. In the Matoran universe is a landmass called the Southern Continent. There's a big earthquake, a piece of the Southern Continent breaks off, smashes through the roof of the Matoran universe, and floats up to the surface of the ocean. Then, later, a piece of that breaks off, floats halfway down, and becomes Mahri Nui. So on the surface, there's Voyanui, then halfway down, there's Mahri Nui, then there's the seafloor, where there's a big hole that's the exact same size and shape as Voyanui. Then if you go through that hole, you're in the Matoran universe above the Southern Continent, which also has a hole that's the same shape as Voyanui, because that's where Voyanui was actually sitting. Now, I think it's very likely that you still have no idea what the fuck I'm saying, but I did make an earnest effort to explain it. So now if you don't get it, I can just be like, well, I tried, you're dumb for not getting it. Now, most of the Matoran that were on Mahri Nui actually survived its sinking because it landed on a field of airweed, which is seaweed that makes air, which made a big bubble around the city, and the Matoran have been able to continue harvesting it, so they live in this bubble and they don't drown. But they're also stuck down there because if they try and swim back up to the surface, they're either gonna run out of air or die of depressurization. So Mahri Nui is actually somehow an even worse place to live than Voyanui, because first of all, at least on Voyanui you could breathe, and then secondly, the Matoran have to be really careful when they're harvesting the air they need to live, because below Mahri Nui is the dark water, and the dark water is the territory of the Barraki. So, the Barraki, let's have a little bit of a history lesson. 95,000 years ago, when the Matoran universe was still young, and by still young, I mean about the same age as recorded human history, things were chaotic, because really the only authority around was the Great Spirit Mahri Nui, and he was too busy, like, running the universe to bring any actual kind of social order to it. So he chose 6 warlords that formed a coalition called the League of Six Kingdoms, and these 6 warlords were called the Barraki, and they brought order to the universe in the name of Mahri Nui, and that was the status quo for like, 15,000 years. But then, the Barraki were like, hey, hang on a second, we already run, like, the whole universe, why don't we just fully conquer it and overthrow Mahri Nui and become gods? So they started amassing armies and laying plans in order to do that, but then on the night before they would have started their campaign, they were ambushed by the forces of the Brotherhood of Makuta, led by our boy Makuta, the Makuta of Metro Nui, our Makuta, because remember, Makuta is actually a species, everyone in the Brotherhood is a Makuta. At this point in the timeline, the Brotherhood is not evil, they're still serving the interests of the Great Spirit, which is why they're here dealing with the Barraki, and also Makuta is not the leader of the Brotherhood, he's second in command, but he is leading this army. So the armies of the Brotherhood destroy the armies of the Barraki, and then Makuta captures them and is like, okay, I'm just gonna kill you guys now, but then, who should show up but everyone's favorite guy, Botar, prisoner transport for the Order of Mahri Nui and teleporting asshole. And Botar is here to do his normal Botar thing, i.e. be a dick and contribute nothing. So he busts into the room like Kramer, and he's like, hey, what up, Makuta? It's me, your favorite guy, Botar, here to take these guys to the pit. And Makuta's like, what the, who are you? What? No, what? No. And Botar's like, ha ha ha, ka-chow, and then teleports them away. And this is a very important moment in the history of the Bionicle universe, because this is the start of Makuta's turn to evil. He realized 2 things in this moment. Thing number 1 is that nobody puts any respect on the Brotherhood of Makuta's name, like, at all. See, the Brotherhood of Makuta were not originally warriors, they were originally scientists. When the Great Beings made them, their job was to create Rahi. Most of the animals in the Matoran universe were made by the Brotherhood of Makuta. But then over time, as Mahri Nui's attention turned toward the running of the universe, the Brotherhood started taking on more and more responsibility, and now they're literally stopping a coup to overthrow God. And yet, despite this, nobody really likes the Brotherhood. Everybody thinks that they're shady, which they are in multiple senses of the word. And then Makuta is now finding out that there's people like Botar out there who are apparently above his pay grade, and then on top of that, all of the love and worship of the Matoran is reserved for the Great Spirit Mahri Nui, who doesn't do anything, whereas they have none for Makuta, who just saved the universe. So he starts getting real resentful about this at this point. And then the second thing he realizes is like, okay, wait, hang on a second. These guys just tried to overthrow Mahri Nui, and I stopped them. So if I try to overthrow Mahri Nui, well, I mean, I'm not gonna stop me. So this was the start of Makuta's turn to evil. Now, as for the Barraki, they got taken to the pit. And they spent the next 80,000 years or so rotting in a cell until Makuta finally executed his plan to overthrow Mahri Nui and caused the Great Cataclysm. And during the Great Cataclysm, when Voyanui burst out through the ceiling of the Matoran universe, the pit was breached. And most of the prisoners of the pit died either in the earthquake or in the attempt at a jailbreak, but the Barraki did not. The Barraki made it out. Now, the bad news for them is, so I've been referring to the Matoran universe as underground caverns, but they're really only underground in relation to the island of Mahri Nui, which is like right above Metro Nui. Most of the Matoran universe is more accurately described as underwater. So anybody that escaped from the pit escaped into the bottom of the ocean. Now, the good news for the Barraki is that when the pit was breached, it released this stuff into the water called pit mutagen, which is a mutagen from the pit, and if you're exposed to it, it turns you into a water breather. So the Barraki didn't just instantly die at the bottom of the ocean. But the bad news, again, is that pit mutagen doesn't make you amphibious, it makes you aquatic. So they didn't really so much escape from the pit as the pit got bigger. So the Barraki, who are now hideous mutants, have been trapped at the bottom of the ocean for 1,000 years, ruling over armies of fish, and also a city fell on them at one point, so they aren't really jazzed on life at the moment. Now, speaking of hideous mutants, I want to take a second to talk about the designs of the Barraki, because at the risk of committing heresy against my perfect angel children, the Bo-Rock, 2007 is my favorite year of Bionicle designs, and the Barraki are a big part of that. Each of the Barraki is based on a different sea creature, which they are named after in a rather on-the-nose manner. Kalma's a squid, Carapar's a crab, Alex an eel, Mantax is a manta ray, Takedox is kind of generically undersea arthropods, and their leader and local actual crazy person, Prydak, is a shark. And I love how this is brought across in their designs, because the Barraki look like a team. They look like they're all of the same kind, but at the same time, they look radically different, and you can tell at a glance what animal they're supposed to be. This is why I was so down on the Toa Hordeca, by the way. It's because you clearly can make a Bionicle look like an animal person, and they just didn't. Personality-wise, the Barraki aren't quite as entertaining as our last villain team, the Paraka. Paraka! But they do feel like much more of a legitimate threat. Like, the Barraki are not bumbling morons who've been tricked into going after the Mask of Life. They are disgraced mutant warlords with a vendetta against all who walk the land. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to the commercial for the Barraki, which is excellent and really sells the menace of them. It also contains a song that somehow apparently is not Bring Me to Life by Evanescence, despite the fact that it clearly has to be Bring Me to Life by Evanescence. However, in the interest of fairness, I should probably say that the Barraki do introduce us to the worst gimmick in Bionicle, squid launchers. 2007 is really the year when Bionicle's gimmicks stopped having anything to do with anything. Squid launchers, so Kalma found a bunch of little vampiric squid in a cave, and he was like, these would be good to shoot at people. So he made squid launchers and then gave all the Barraki squid launchers, and that's it. That's what squid launchers are. But the lore is not the issue here. The issue is the functionality. So the premise here is that squid launchers work like shooting a rubber band. You build up elastic tension and then release it. The issue is that if you build up enough tension to actually shoot it, it just pops out. But if you don't build up enough to fire it, it just gets stuck in the launcher. So these don't work. Like, I can't get it to work. I saw a video on YouTube of a guy getting it to work, but I think that guy might have been a wizard. So this is the undersea status quo. The Barraki rule over the dark water, and above it, the Matoran cling to life on Mahri Nui. But that all changes when the Mask of Life comes floating down from the surface. Now, the Mask of Life gets picked up by this Matoran named Kyrex, which is the most Bionicle name ever. But very quickly, it becomes apparent that the pit mutagen is affecting the mask. So it's starting to deteriorate and just using its power wildly on everything around it. It starts making all the plants around Kyrex grow to the point that they almost kill her, but she gets saved by this other Matoran named Dekar, and he's like, what's the deal with this mask? And Kyrex is like, I don't know, but you should have it, here you go, and then swims away, making her the smartest character in Bionicle. So Dekar's like, well, I mean, it's kind of an interesting trinket. It's not like I can use it, I'm just a Matoran, so I guess I'll just take it with me while I go hunting, and he goes hunting. But meanwhile, the Barraki saw the Mask of Life come drifting down toward Mahri Nui, and since they're the Barraki and they've been around, they're like, yo, that's the Mask of Life, dog. That is our ticket out of here. That's the thing that's gonna be able to transform us back into air breathers and let us go and conquer the surface. We need that mask. So each of the Barraki starts working on getting the mask in their own way. Prydak captures these four Matoran and imprisons them in a cave, and he's like, all right, where's the mask at? And Dekar didn't tell anybody about the mask, so they're like, what mask? And Prydak's like, okay, bet, and grabs one of them and just throws them to his sharks, which, if you've read the web serials, you know that that Matoran actually got rescued. We'll get to that later, but I didn't read the web serials as a kid because I didn't know they existed. So as far as I was aware, that Matoran got ripped apart by sharks, which is brutal. Brutaka shows up for a minute because remember, Botar took Brutaka to the pit, and this is the pit, and Botar, okay, so Botar is just a huge idiot and hasn't realized in the last 1,000 years that the pit is now at the bottom of the ocean because he only teleports there for like a nanosecond, like not even long enough to get wet, which I don't think is real science and also is stupid. So Brutaka is now also a mutant water breather, and he meets up with the Barraki Barraki, and he's like, okay, I'm running this shit now. You guys are gonna help me get the Mask of Life. And the Barraki are like, oh yeah, for sure, we will do that. And then like 5 minutes later, one of Kalma's giant squids drags Brutaka away. And again, if you've read the web serials, you know that Brutaka escapes from this and goes on to become a very important character. But if you didn't read the web serials, then this is the last you ever see of Brutaka. He is dragged off by a squid, and that's it. He's out of the story. Meanwhile, Elec leads an army of eels against Mahri Nui to like destroy it and get the mask, and then Takedox hears about this and he's like, no! You're gonna destroy the mask, you goddamn idiot! So he sends Karapar to stop him, and then Karapar is like, okay, Matoran of Mahri Nui, that attack is over, but I've occupied the airfields with my army of crabs. If you guys don't hand over the mask soon, you're all gonna run out of air and drown. And the Matoran are like, we don't know what you're talking about. We don't have a mask, because Dekar is still off hunting. By the way, Dekar is still off hunting, but he's noticed that he is unable to kill anything because the Mask of Life keeps bringing everything back to life. And he's like, huh, that's kinda sus. I think I should probably just destroy this mask. But when he tries to destroy it, the Mask of Life turns one of the eels into like a gigantic hell eel, and it starts wrecking everything and almost destroys Mahri Nui, and everything is chaos. But then the eel is distracted by the sounds of combat coming from the cord. The cord is effectively a stone tunnel that connects the top of Mahri Nui to the bottom of Voya Nui, and the reason that there are sounds of combat coming from it is that the cord is the route that the Toa and Nika are using to get down to Mahri Nui. Remember them? They're actually gonna show up now. Now, as for who the Toa are fighting, that's kind of complicated, because, okay, so I was rereading the Bionicle books to refresh my memory about the story, and while I do that, I always have the Bionicle wiki open in another window. And there was this line in the wiki where it said that while they were descending the cord, some stuff happened. They, like, run into Vizon again. He followed them down there, and they have a scrap with him. And, like, Matoro gets possessed for a minute, and they have to deal with that. And I was like, hang on, I don't think any of this happened. None of this was in the books. None of this was in the comics. When does this happen? So I checked the footnote on the wiki, and it was like, Bionicle Updated Encyclopedia. So I checked the Bionicle Updated Encyclopedia, and sure enough, it does say in there that these things happen. But as far as I've been able to discern, it only says it there. Like, that doesn't actually happen in the story anywhere. So unless I'm mistaken and I missed something somewhere, Bionicle is now getting things wrong about itself. Hey guys, Editor Noah here. So I don't usually do this, but it turns out that I did miss something, and it's such an insane something that I felt that I actually needed to come in and explain it with my own voice. So basically, the events that I was just talking about, the fight with Vizon and Matoro getting possessed and stuff, those did happen, but they happened in an unreleased book. Like, this era was originally supposed to have 4 books, and then Lego was like, nah, we're not gonna do that, and they cut one of them. And then I guess Farshtey was like salty about that. He was like pissed that Lego canceled the book or something. So he was like, man, fuck Lego. I'm putting this stuff in the encyclopedia anyway, which I think makes these things canon. Like, they're in the encyclopedia, they're on the wiki, so I think they like count, but they don't actually happen because the thing in which they happen wasn't released. Utterly psychotic power move by Farshtey, and I just thought you should know. Okay, yeah, back to the video. Anyway, what the Toa actually definitely are doing in the court is fighting Zyglak, which are like, they're like the bastard children of the great beings created as an unintentional byproduct of the process that makes Matoran. It doesn't matter. You don't care. But the Toa and Nika are fighting the Zyglak, and that attracts the attention of the giant eel, which wraps around the cord and starts squeezing it, and it starts to crack, and water is pouring in. The Toa are definitely gonna drown. But right as this is happening, the Barraki have finally cornered Dekar with the mask, and Pridak like slaps him out of the way, and he's like, ah, the Mask of Life at last. This will allow us to conquer, you know, whatever Pridak says. And he reaches out and grabs the Mask of Life, and as he does, in one last-ditch attempt to defend itself, it lets off this enormous flash of light, and that light strikes the Toa and Nika and transforms them into the Toa Mari. Like a runaway train, Okay, so first of all, at this point, I feel like Toa don't even have the right to act surprised if they get transformed into some other kind of Toa, because this has literally happened to everyone. But putting that aside, the Toa Mahri are my favorite Toa designs, which kind of makes it even more embarrassing that I'm missing one of them. They're just so cool, dude. Their masks, their colors, the way they're built, the way that the water theming is like clearly present, but also not so present that it overwhelms the design and makes them look stupid. Jala has a cute little crab that he mounts a minigun on, which is his consolation prize for being a Toa of fire at the bottom of the ocean, which sucks for him. I know that some people don't like Matoro because he's kind of weird and hunchbacked, but I actually love him. I think this is a better design for him than his Toa Nika version because it makes him appear more humble, which is perfect for his character. The cinematic commercial for the Toa Mahri is one of the coolest things that's ever been made. It's better than all the Bionicle movies put together. It gives me chills. Go watch it. The Toa Mahri bring in 2007's second new gimmick alert. That's right, we now have more than one per year. Kordak blasters, which, like, I know I said that Ratuka spinners are the best Bionicle gimmick, but I think actually Kordak blasters might be the best Bionicle gimmick. They're so satisfying to use. Like, check this shit out. Ba, 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 ba. You may notice, by the way, that Kongu has two, whereas everybody else has one, and that's due to a goddamn iconic moment in which they find the blasters, and Kongu picks up two of them, and everybody else is like, what are you doing? And he's like, two hands. Kongu actually has another iconic moment also where he clowns on Hali, because Hali has these big, like, fin wings, and he's like, yo, what's up with that? And she's like, I don't know, man. We all got mutated. You look different, too. And he's like, yeah, dodged the fins thing, though. I don't actually know why he's clowning on Hali, though, because Hali is so sick. The wings are sick. Hali is, like, my favorite one out of all of them. The one problem with Hali is, so you see these, like, lime green bits on her? So there's, like, a meme in the Bionicle community that the lime joints are extremely fragile and always break. And I was always like, these people are stupid. That never happened to me. And then, I took her out of storage, and, yeah, I don't know if you can see, but, her hand is broken, and now she can't hold her Kordak blaster. The meme is real, and the lime joints are bad. One thing that I will say is kind of weird about the Toa Mahri from, like, a story perspective is that the Toa and Nika were very unusual Toa. They had, like, the living masks and the lightning infusion, and all of that is just gone. This transformation makes them into much more standard Toa, which is weird, but also it's good because the Toa and Nika were sus and the Toa Mahri are awesome. In conclusion, the Toa Mahri are the best Toa. 2007 has the sickest designs, and I kind of can't believe that I don't have Hyuki. Like, what the fuck, man? How did I not collect all the Toa Mahri? What the fuck? So anyway, back to the story. The Toa Mahri are aquatic Toa. They can breathe water, but not air, and they are immune to pit mutagen. So they're released out of the cord into the ocean, and they have to fight this giant eel, which they actually deal with extremely quickly, and then they see Mahri Nui, and they're like, okay, let's go down there and link up with the Matoran and ask them about the Mask of Life. So the Toa swim up to Mahri Nui, and they're like, yo, what's up, local Matoran? We're here, looking for the Mask of Life. And the Matoran are like, Jesus Christ, would you fucking fish people stop asking us about the Mask of Life? We don't know anything about the Mask of Life. And the Toa are like, no, you guys, you don't understand. We're Toa, we're here to help. And the Matoran are like, oh, you guys are Toa? Oh, okay. Yeah, where have you been, huh? Where were you guys? Where was Gondor when Mahri Nui fell, huh? Alright, fine. If you guys are Toa, then prove it. 5 of you go liberate the airfields from the crab army, and 1 of you stay here as collateral. So Matoro stays behind, and the rest of them go off to the airfields where they run into the Barraki, who I will remind you now have the Mask of Life. And the Barraki are like, oh, disgraced Toa, huh? So what'd you guys do? What are you in for? And Hali steps up and starts talking big shit and being like, we're not in the business of telling our goddamn life story to every fish guy that crosses our path. And the Barraki are like, yeah, we're not just fish people, we're kind of the Barraki, and we're gonna use the Mask of Life to reclaim the surface. And Hali's like, oh, Barraki? More like Barakshi, way I'm about to pick my teeth with you motherfucker. And the Barraki are like, alright, you guys are really rude, but you're also not a threat to us because we have armies. Come with us, we're gonna put you in squid jail. And the Toa are like, okay, I mean, what? We're just gonna break out anyway, so whatever. And they go with the Barraki. Meanwhile, Matoro is chilling at Mahri Nui, and then the Mahri Nui Matoran are like, we just saw your friends swim off with the Barraki. We're gonna kill you. And Matoro's like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna leave. So he swims off, but then he gets attacked and captured by this guy who's called Hydraxon. Now, Hydraxon was a member of the Order of Mahri Nui and the jailer of the pit. And I say was because Hydraxon is dead. He died in the jailbreak during the Great Cataclysm. So this is not actually Hydraxon. This is Dekar, the Matoran that had the Mask of Life. That same pulse of light that hit the Toa Nika and turned them into the Toa Mari, it also hit him, and it transformed him into a copy of Hydraxon, which is actually extremely dark and tragic because this innocent Matoran's entire identity was just erased so he could be transformed into a soulless copy of a long dead guy, rotely going about his old duty with no understanding of the fact that he's dead. It's really dark. It's very dark. Now, Hydraxon should be really cool. The issue with Hydraxon is that the very first line that he says, like, he captures Matoro, and this is his introduction, his, like, first one-liner, is he's like, "Welcome to the pit, runner. You have the right to remain jailed." Which is such a fucking stupid line that I actually am incapable of saying it without laughing, and it completely ruins Hydraxon. So Hydraxon drags Matoro off to the pit, like the actual prison part of it, and throws him in a cell, and he's like, "Alright, I'm gonna go look for more runners. You can probably escape from here, but I wouldn't recommend it because this place is being guarded by this giant robot called Maxilos and his hound Spinax." Maxilos has to be one of the most unreasonably badass sets in all of Bionicle. Like, look at this weapon, look at the shoulder-mounted Kordak, look at the face pauldrons, and then Spinax is also good. The issue with Spinax is that we're at the bottom of the ocean, and this is a dog, which is not a very hydrodynamic creature, and I feel like this really wasn't accounted for at all. Like, when Maxilos is swimming, does he just, like, drag Spinax along on this chain? Oh, shit. So Hydraxon leaves Matoro with Maxilos, and the second he leaves, this robot starts acting super weird, because, like, this is a robot. It isn't supposed to be sentient, but it starts, like, talking to Matoro and using all these weird powers, and it's like, "Oh, Matoro, everyone thought that I was dead, but you knew better, didn't you?" And Matoro's like, "No, you've got to be fucking kidding me. No shot is this happening right now." And Maxilos is like, yeah, you know what it is, bitch. Guess who's back, baby? Backstreet's back, alright. Somehow Makuta has returned. I mean, I literally told you guys that Makuta is just Palpatine. Here he is, returning halfway through the sequels. Star Wars is still ripping off of Bionicle 15 years later, except in this, it's actually good because there is an explanation. So you guys may have missed my extremely subtle foreshadowing in the last video, but antidermis, the stuff that the Paraka were putting in their Zammer spheres, that is Makuta. Because remember how I said that members of the Brotherhood are not biomechanical anymore, they're just energy in a metal shell? So Makuta's energy survived the destruction of his body in his battle with Taka Nuva, and it was lingering in his lair when the Paraka showed up, and he psychically influenced them to go after the Mask of Life, and went with them to Voya Nui and was chilling in their vat and subtly helping them out. But then Voya Nui was kind of a complete debacle, and the things he wanted to happen there didn't really happen at all, so he's now come down to Mahri Nui and inhabited the body of this Maxilos robot to handle things personally. So Matoro's like, "Oh my god, dude. Okay, look, if you're here to kill me, just do it." And Makuta's like, "I'm not here to kill you, idiots. I'm here to help." I mean, I don't really know why you would think I want Mahri Nui dead. Like, if Mahri Nui dies, so does everything in the universe, probably including me. And even if it doesn't include me, everything will be dead, so there's nothing for me to rule over. So yeah, I want you guys to succeed here. I'm on your side. Oh, but I should mention that I can kill you very easily, and if you tell any of the other Toa about me, I will kill them. So Makuta helps Matoro escape from the pit, and then all the other Toa escape from Barraki jail, and nobody really asks any questions about this huge, scary robot and his little doggy that are now following around Matoro. Everyone's just like, whatever, dude, works for me. Meanwhile, the Barraki are having a meeting, and they're like, okay, the Mask of Life is falling apart because of the pit mutagen. Eventually, it'll just completely dissolve, and we're gonna bathe in the energy that's released by that and be restored to our former selves. But then they're like, okay, that is a good plan, but who's gonna hold on to the mask while we wait for that to happen? And Pridak's like, I'll hold it, and the rest of them are like, no, the fuck you won't. So for safekeeping, they decide to give the mask to this guy, Nocturne. I love the design of Nocturne. I think he looks super cool with his blue and green, very deep sea. He's a on-again, off-again lieutenant of Elec and a former prisoner of the pit, and he's kind of a neutral party in all of this, so they're like, okay, we'll just give the mask to him, which is a huge mistake because Nocturne is an idiot, and and he has the mask for all of like 5 minutes before he's like, I'm bored, and blunders off with it. So the Barraki start freaking out because they can't find the mask. They think that the Toa have it. The Toa think that they have it. Then the Barraki realize the Toa don't have it, so each Barraki thinks that a different Barraki stole it. So that starts like a Barraki civil war that the Toa help instigate. It's a classic the Toa doing a bunch of stuff. Like, a lot of things happen, but none of it matters. The only thing of real significance that happens during this is that Makuta and Matoro are teamed up and doing a lot of stuff together. And just like when Makuta and Vakama teamed up during that Mask of Time side quest, anytime that Makuta and a Toa get to like hang out and interact casually, it is a highlight of the series. The dynamic this time around is a little bit different though, because Makuta and Vakama were very much like unwilling allies who both hate each other, where Makuta's like, you're an inferior life form, and Vakama's like, oh yeah, then how can we beat your ass, idiot? And Makuta's like, cause I let you, dumbass. The dynamic between Makuta and Matoro though is a lot more like grim and messed up. Basically, Makuta just follows him around, criticizing every decision he makes and emotionally gaslighting him, being like, damn man, you're like evil and a bad Toa. Like, there's a part where Matoro gets into a fight with Prydak, and Prydak sends an army of sharks at him, and Matoro uses his mask power, which can raise zombies from the dead, to summon an army of zombie sharks, which is badass. And he sends them at Prydak's army, and Makuta's there, and he's like, damn, dude, that's like some shit I would do. And then later on, Makuta just like casually drops that in order for the Mask of Life to be used to save Mahri Nui's life, it has to be in the heart of the universe, which is below the southern continent, which is the landmass that Voya Nui was a part of. And for this to work, the heart of the universe needs to have its roof back on it, which is Voya Nui. So Voya Nui has to return to the Matoran universe. Again, please consult this chart for a very vague understanding of how this all works. Point is, to complete their mission, the Toa Mari are gonna have to blow up the cord and drop Voya Nui back down into the Matoran universe, smashing through Mahri Nui on its way, which is going to kill all of the Matoran on both landmasses. And Makuta's like, rejoice, Toa! Your name will go down in history right next to mine as the greatest killer of Matoran. So he's being a real dick, and he's clearly trying to manipulate Matoro into doing something to prove that he's not evil, and we'll see what that is later. Now, the other thing that happens during this part of the story is the events of the web serials. So I would like to welcome you to Web Serial Hell. Okay, so listen, I know I said earlier that the web serials are like a problem, but I didn't fully express the degree to which the web serials are a problem. Let me explain. So there were 3 web serials that take place during this era. 4 if you count the one that's a flashback, but that's a flashback, so if we don't count it. And all 3 of these web serials take place simultaneously with each other and with the books. The web serial experience is you're reading one web serial, and it's like chapter 5 ends with, and then Makuta faced off against an army of crabs. And chapter 6 starts with the army of crabs defeated, Makuta went on to do this other thing. And you're like, whoa, wait, what about the battle with the army of crabs? Did we just skip that? And the answer is no, we didn't skip that. That is in like chapter 4 of a different web serial. And in that fight has no beginning or end because they are in the first web serial, and you just have to like know that it's like that, which I didn't because I didn't read the web serial. But now I have subjected myself to the web serials so that you don't have to, and I'm just gonna give you a brief rundown of the major events of each one. Web serial number 1, the Gali Nuva blog. So you may recall from the ending of my last video that while the Toa Mari went down into the ocean to get the mask and save Mahri Nui's life, the Toa Nuva, the original heroes of this story, went to carry out a list of tasks that'll be essential for the reawakening of Mahri Nui, assuming that the Toa Mari are able to save him. Task number 1. Bring back the Barraki, baby! Oh yeah, and also like probably do some other stuff, I don't know. So if you recall from my very first video, the mission of the Barraki was never actually to hurt anybody. They only started fighting people once people started fighting them. Their mission was to clean the island of Mahri Nui, wipe out everything on it, which it turns out is essential to the reawakening of the Great Spirit. Don't ask me why or how, we'll get into it later, all you need to know is that it is. So basically the Barraki were actually just doing their very important job and were never evil at all, and the Toa were in the wrong, and the Borak never did anything wrong, and they're perfect, and I love them. So the Toa Nuva go back up to the island of Mahri Nui and into the Borak nest, and they unseal the Borak queens, and the Borak queens are like, well, look who's come crawling back. And the Toa Nuva are like, alright, whatever, I don't want to hear it. Can you just destroy the island? And the Barraki are like, yeah, we're gonna destroy the island, because we do our job, okay? Get the fuck out of here. And then the Toa Nuva have to do a bunch of other stuff. They have to find this thing called the Staff of Artaka, which is on Zia, which is Rudaka's homeland. So the Toa Nuva are looking for the staff and negotiating with Rudaka for its location, and then the Rahaga show up, and they're like, okay, we'll handle this whole Tatarak situation, but you, Rudaka, have got to mutate us back into the Toa Haga, so they're back to being the Toa Haga. But then the Toa Nuva lose the Staff of Artaka to this member of the Brotherhood of Makuta named Icarax, and they follow Icarax to Karzani, remember Matoro in Hell, and Icarax beats them all up, but then Gali destroys Karzani with a tsunami, and then they lose the Staff of Artaka anyway. So then the Toa Nuva are like, okay, well, I guess that one's a lost cause, so we'll do all the other things on this list. And then after they do all of that, the Toa Nuva get teleported to Daxia, which is the base of the Order of Mahri Nui, and the Order is like, good job, you did everything on the list. And the Toa are like, but we didn't get the Staff of Artaka. And they're like, oh, we already have the Staff of Artaka here because of Web Serial 2, Into the Darkness. Actually, in order to tell you about Into the Darkness, I kind of have to tell you about Web Serial 1.5, The Many Deaths of Toa 2 yet, but I'll keep this quick. So back in the day, thousands of years ago on Metro Nui, there was a Toa of water on Likon's team named Tuyet, and she was in possession of this thing called the Nui Stone, which is a rock where if a Toa has it, it supercharges their elemental powers. They become like a mega Toa. And Tuyet was crazy, she killed a bunch of Matoran, and then she tried to use the Nui Stone in a bid to take over the universe, but Likon stopped her and blew it up in her face because he's the guy, and then she got taken to the pit by Botar and died during the jailbreak. Anyway, now Into the Darkness. So in the present day, Makuta drags Matoro down into the ruins of the pit, where they find the body of Toa Tuyet. And Makuta's like, I need you to use your mask of reviving zombies to bring her back so that I can take the shards of the Nui Stone from her body and use them to reforge it so that if there's ever like an evil Toa that I can get on my side, I can supercharge them. And this entire situation is bullshit on multiple levels. But right now, Matoro does revive Tuyet, and he and Tuyet and Makuta swim off. And the best moment in this story, and actually the best moment in any of the web serials, is Hali sees Matoro swimming along with a demon robot and a zombie Toa, and she comes up and is like, hey man, what's going on? Like, what's good with you? And Matoro's like, oh, yo, what's up, Hali? Nothing much. You know, we're just chilling. We're all good. Get the fuck out of here. So Makuta's gonna use the Staff of Artaka to repair the Nui Stone. The staff got stolen from the Toa Nuva by Icarax. He brought it to him at the bottom of the ocean somehow. But then Brutaka shows up. He escaped from squid jail off screen, and he grabs the staff and he's like, Botar! And Botar teleports in and takes it and teleports away. Also, it specifically says that Botar gives Brutaka like a nod of recognition that even though he's a criminal, he's doing a good thing here. But the thing about that is I'm pretty sure that being there long enough to nod at Brutaka is the longest that Botar has ever been in the pit. And after this, he stops teleporting people to the pit. So I'm assuming that this is the moment where he realized the pit was flooded. So I'm imagining him teleporting in and being like, Brutaka, although you are a criminal and your actions are unforgivable, I recognize the nobility of why am I wet? So Makuta is pissed about this and he fights Brutaka, and Brutaka has his entire game figured out. He's like, look man, I know you don't actually want the Mask of Life because you had plenty of opportunities to get it and you didn't take them. You just want to be here and make sure that it's used on your terms. And by the way, I saw Hydraxon fighting Nocturne, who has the mask, and Hydraxon is definitely gonna win that fight, and then he's gonna blow up the mask. So you might want to go deal with that. And Makuta's like, shit, and he goes off to deal with that. So that's Into the Darkness. Web Serial 3, Dreams of Destruction. So remember how I said that Prydak kidnapped a bunch of Matoran and then threw one of them to get ripped apart by sharks, but then that Matoran actually got rescued? Well, the guy that rescued him was this guy, Toa Lesovic. Lesovic is a Toa of air, and he was the leader of the first ever Toa team. But then he was disgraced because he hesitated in combat and his whole team got killed. So Lesovic spent several thousand years wandering the universe being sad. He tried to link up with his old Matoran friends, but they had been shipped off to Karzani and then subsequently shipped off to Voyanui, and then the part of Voyanui Nui that they were on fell into the water and became Mahri Nui, and they forgot everything about that, so they're now down here, and one of them is the one that Lesovic just saved. So he explains all this and explains how he has beef with Karzani, the guy, not the place, although I guess also the place, because he tried to get his Matoran friends from Karzani and Karzani didn't let him. And then right as he's saying this, with incredible timing, Karzani shows up, like the devil is just here. He has been mutated into a form that is objectively less cool and is here to get the Mask of Life and use it to rule the universe, a motive that is unique to him, and no one else has ever had that idea. So Karzani briefly fights Lesovic, and then he overhears Makuta talking about the staff of Artaka, and Artaka is Karzani's way more successful brother, so he gets pissed off, attacks Makuta. Makuta kicks his ass. Karzani's like, oh, I'll attack him telepathically. Makuta kicks his ass telepathically. Karzani runs off to go hide in a cave. Lesovic follows him. Karzani tries to trap him in the old infinite dream gambit, but Lesovic breaks out of it, and then he's like, I'm gonna kill this guy, and then his Matoran friends are like, nah, he ain't even worth it. And Lesovic's like, you're right, he ain't even worth it. Let's go have adventures. So he goes off to have adventures with his Matoran friends, and then Karzani gets taken to a new prison by Botar. So that's the web serials, and I'd like you to understand two things about the web serials. One is that I summarized so heavily, and two is that they only get worse from here. So back to the actual story, Hydraxon comes across Nocturne, who has the mask still, and he fights Nocturne and beats him, and then he's like, I don't trust this mask, so he's gonna blow it up, but then Hali and Mantax stop him, and then Mantax gets the mask, and he's like, alright, enough of this, I'm calling a Barraki meeting, I'm out of here. So he swims off, and Hydraxon goes after him. So then the Toa regroup, and they're like, okay, we gotta send somebody to track down Hydraxon and the Barraki. And Matoro is like, oh, we should send Maxilos, because he's got this hunting hound with him, and also, because he's a robot, and he certainly isn't possessed by anything that would give him free will and allow him to say no to this request, right, Maxilos? And Makuta's like, yeah, okay, and he swims away. So with Makuta gone for the moment, Matoro is like, you guys, it's about to pop off here, okay? We need to get the Matoran up the cord and onto Voya Nui, because when we blow up the cord, which we have to do, it's gonna smash Mahri Nui. So we gotta get them out of here before they die. So the Toa start evacuating the Matoran up the cord. The Matoran are like, hey, sorry about when we tried to kill you because we thought you were evil fish people, and the Toa are like, water under the bridge. But on their way back up to Voya Nui, the Toa and the Matoran are ambushed by the Paraka.
Yo, Paraka!
Now the thing about the Paraka is, remember when they were going down to the Mask of Life and they failed that prisoner's dilemma room and fell into water, and I was like, that's gonna be important. Well, it was important because that water had pit mutagen in it. So they now have been mutated. They are now sea snakes. So basically all of their plans are over and they are not in the story anymore, which is such a lame fate for the Paraka. I mean, look, I understand that the Paraka were actually just a bunch of decoy goons that Makuta brought in to waste time. So it does make sense that they aren't actually important characters, and after their arc, they kind of get turned into snakes and sidelined out of the story. But we spent so much time with them and they were so much fun and so cool, and their song was a banger. It sucks that this is their fate, especially Zocton. Zocton was scary and smart, and he knew everything about the Bionicle universe, and he had plans. So it sucks that he just got turned into a sea snake and written out of the story. That's stupid. Oh, also, by the way, right here, Hakan says that Vizok is the one responsible for them falling into the water and getting mutated, and that isn't true. It was Radak. So once again, Farshtey is now getting things wrong about his own story, which is not a good sign. Anyway, the Paraka are actually kind of winning this fight, despite the fact that they are now snakes, but then Axon shows up and just slaps them and knocks them all out. And the Teller are like, oh, Axon, thank God you're here. Okay, listen, we need to blow up the cord and sink Voya Nui in order to do this whole Mask of Life thing. So all of these Matoran need to get to safety. So we really need to do something. And Axon's like, yeah, bitch, I know. Look, I'll hide all the Matoran, including the ones you just brought, in caves on Voya Nui, which will, I guess, let them live through the island sinking. But you guys need to get back down there right the hell now, because the Great Spirit Mata Nui has an hour of life left. So the Toa get on this Bionicle train and ride it back down into the ocean for the final battle of this arc. So the Toa show up, and unfortunately a lot of this last final battle section is just a lot of time wasting and people doing stuff. The Toa fights some Rahi, Hydraxon fights Makuta, Hydraxon fights the Barraki, the mask gets passed around a lot, Gadunka is involved. So at the end of all of this, Makuta has the mask, but Matoro turns on him and freezes him and grabs it, and he and Jala swim away. And they have this nice little heart-to-heart where Matoro is like, look man, I'm really sorry I didn't tell you earlier, but that's Makuta. And Jala's like, it's okay man, like I get it, but also, you have a team now, and we like you, and we all think you're a good Toa, and we can share your burdens. And Matoro's like, oh man, you know, that really means a lot. Maybe after all this is over, I kind of thought that I would just become a Turaga, but maybe I'll stay as a Toa. Maybe there's still more good I can do in the world. And they swim off. Meanwhile, Makuta breaks out of the ice, and he has an open opportunity to go after them and get the mask back, but he chooses not to. And not only does he not go after them, he actively stops the Barraki from going after them. And the Barraki are like, get the hell out of our way, you stupid ass robot. And Makuta's like, oh, oh, you don't remember me. Okay, all right, let me see if this rings a bell. I completely ruined all of your lives. And the Barraki are like, okay, no, come on, man. There's no way that Makuta is here right now. And Makuta's like, it's ya boy. The Barraki just completely drop everything to try and kill Makuta, and Makuta beats them up. And they're like, oh my god, dude, was it not enough to ruin our lives once? And Makuta's like, you are giving yourselves way too much credit right now, man. I don't care about you at all. I'm just trying to make sure this whole Mask of Life thing goes down the way I want it to. But then the Barraki are like, oh, wait a second, we have an army of 100,000 sharks. So they send 100,000 sharks at Makuta, and they completely rip him apart. So Makuta is out of the game, but he's like, all right, I did everything I could. Hopefully the Toa have got it from here. So the Toa and Mahri regroup, and they have the mask, and they're ready to blow the cord. Hydraxon shows up and is like,
I believe that mask belongs to me.
and they're like, listen, man, if you want to be responsible for Mahri Nui dying and everyone else dying in 5 minutes, take the goddamn mask. And Hydraxon's like, I have runners to catch, and swims away. So the Toa are like, okay, we have the mask, everything is in place, we're ready, let's do this. So they all fire their Kordak blasters, because you gotta keep that gimmick relevant, remember, and they destroy the cord, and Voyanui starts sinking. And the Toa need to get back through the roof of the Matoran universe before Voyanui falls and seals it off. So they're racing the island down there, and the armies of the Barraki are coming after them, but Makuta gave them too much of a head start, and it looks like they're gonna make it. But then suddenly everyone feels this horrible chill. And in that moment, everyone realizes that they are too late. The Great Spirit Mahri Nui is dead. And what happens next is honestly kind of hard to explain. My original plan was to do a dramatic reading of what happens next from the book, but then that ended up being a complete tonal car crash. I'm actually re-recording this right now. I am gonna put a link to an unlisted video with the dramatic reading in the description. Like, if you wanna fully get what happens, it's there. But basically, for the length of one chapter, Bionicle decides that it's going to become way better written than it ever has been or will ever be again. So basically what happens is the Toa are all like, oh, well, this isn't good. I guess we completely failed and the whole universe is doomed. And one of them is like, should we destroy the mask so the Barraki don't get it? And then the others are like, who gives a shit if the Barraki get the mask? God is dead. But then Matoro steps up and he's like, all right, you know what? No. Voyanui hasn't landed yet. I'm holding the Mask of Life in my hand. We did not chase after this thing for 2 entire real-life years to fail now, okay? We did not bring in the goddamn all-American rejects to fail now, okay? We're taking the Mask of Life, we're going down there, there has to be something that we can do. And the other two are like, yeah, you're right, you're spitting, we shouldn't give up hope yet, but let's be real here for a second. None of us fuck with the Mask of Life like you do. You're the chosen one, this is your thing, this is your destiny. You're gonna go down there and do something, but we are gonna stay here and fight the Barraki's armies and stall them to buy you as much time as possible. And like, they're gonna die. The Barraki's armies just took out Makuta, and these 5 morons who have been Toa for like a day are no Makuta. They're donezo. But they're willing to do it for Matoro so that he can fulfill his destiny. So Matoro and the other Toa bid each other an extremely sad and tragic farewell, and they part ways, and Matoro takes off after Voyanui, and he's racing releasing it back down into the Matoran universe, and he just barely makes it through before it falls and locks into place. And he's falling down through this huge waterfall into the core of the universe, and he's suddenly compelled to put on the mask of life. And the second he does, he's like, oh, this might have been a mistake, actually. Like, not in the sense that he's doing the wrong thing, this is what he's supposed to do, but the mask of life isn't the kind of power where you just like put it on and you just use it and it's no big deal. Like, you know how in a nuclear fission reactor you destroy an atom and then use the resulting energy to power whatever you want to power? Yeah, so in this situation, Matoro is the atom, and the mask of life is about to obliterate him and then use that energy to revive Mahri Nui. So basically, immediately the mask of life starts eating him alive. His body is dissolving and turning into pure light, and his mind is dissolving too. He's losing his personality and his memories and everything that makes him who he is, but he manages to hold on to one thing, and that's the memory of his team. Matoro's friends are at the bottom of the ocean fighting the Barraki, about to die in the dark like dogs. And what's even worse than that is that nobody's even gonna know. Matoro's not going home, they're not going home, there's nobody to tell anyone what happened down here. These people are literally making the greatest sacrifice of all time in order to save the universe, and their legend will never be told. Nobody back on Mahri Nui will ever find out what happened to them or why they never came home. And Matoro's like, you know what? No, that's unacceptable. I don't care that I'm basically already dead. I don't care that this isn't how this works. The Great Spirit Mahri Nui can wait his damn turn. If I can't use the literal infinite power that I am wearing right now on my face to save the people that matter to me, the rest of the universe can get fucked for all I care. And the Mask of Life is like, all right, you know what? I respect it. You're about to die, but before that happens, I give you access to my full power one time. And Matoro uses that power to save the lives of his friends, teleporting them back home to Mahri Nui and restoring their ability to breathe air. And with that done, he surrenders himself completely to the Mask of Life. He explodes in a giant corona of light that fills up the entire universe, and just as everyone felt the Great Spirit die, now everyone feels the Great Spirit come back to life. And back on Mahri Nui, even as the Toa Mori mourn the loss of their friend, they recognize that he did his duty and fulfilled his destiny. He saved his team, he saved the universe, and he proved that no matter what he may have thought of himself, he is in fact a hero, and also he's Bionicle Jesus. Bless up. You were the best of us, Toa Matoro. R.I.P.
I'll take it from you.
And listen, maybe you're sitting there and you're like, whatever, bro, I don't even give a shit about Matoro, but you don't get it, okay? First of all, A, you didn't read 20 books to get up to this point. You aren't invested for real. And secondly, it's about the jump in writing quality. Like, go watch the dramatic reading. It'll give you a little bit better of an idea of why this is, in fact, a really good and, like, emotionally affecting moment. And granted, a series that ran for 10 years having one singular moment that is actually emotionally affecting is admittedly kind of a low bar. Some might even say a pathetically low bar, but nonetheless, we did clear it. So good job, Farshtey. You actually kind of killed it on this one. Okay, all right, stop crying. We need to wrap up. So back at the bottom of the ocean, the Barraki's armies turn on each other and rip each other apart, and they go back to stewing in their impotent hatred. Meanwhile, Hydraxon comes across the destroyed shell of the Maxilos robot, and there's no sign of Makuta anywhere, but like, I'm not even gonna try and front and be like, oh guys, maybe Makuta's dead, who knows? We've already seen this guy's body get destroyed, and this wasn't even his body, so like, he's fine. He'll be back. And finally, with the Great Spirit's life saved, it is at last time for his reawakening. So the Toa Nuva are teleported to the land of Artaka, which is like Matoran heaven, where they talk to its ruler, who is also named Artaka, who is kind of like an angel, kind of, who gives them new armor and weapons and sends them off to the core of the universe to fulfill their destiny and bring Mahri Nui back from his eternal slumber, and that's where the Mahri Nui era ends. And listen, I know that at the end of all of these videos I've said something to the effect of, and you should really come back for the next one, because the next one, ooh, that's where things really get crazy. However, you should really come back for the next one, because the next one, ooh, that's where things really get crazy. On the next episode of Bio Ball Z, we will be talking about Bionicle 2008, which includes all of the most insane, most important, and most mind-blowing events of the entire story. And if you have watched all the way up till now, you have to watch the next one. Like, I'm not even gonna give you a choice this time. You have to do it. So subscribe to the channel so you're notified when I drop it, and I at best see you in part 5, the Nui era, where we learn that Bionicle contains a Suicide Squad, a multiverse, an eldritch abomination, and 100% unironically, the best plot twist in the history of fiction. See you next time.